The sky above, Kansas turned dark at noon. Danny Cole stood outside the small clinic where he worked as a paramedic and looked up at the massive shapes blocking the sun. The ships were enormous, each one the size of a small city, and they hung in the air without making any sound at all. Danny had served 2 tours in Afghanistan as an army medic, and he had seen many terrible things in his life, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. His phone buzzed with emergency alerts. The television inside the clinic showed the same scene playing out across the world. Giant alien vessels had appeared over every major city and countless smaller towns. The president was addressing the nation, but Danny could barely hear the words over the pounding of his own heart. Lisa Grant came running from the veterinary clinic next door. She was young, smart, and had become Danny's closest friend since she moved to 2 years ago. Her face was pale with fear as she grabbed his arm. "Danny, what is happening?" she asked. Before he could answer, a booming voice echoed across the sky. It spoke in perfect English, though there was something cold and mechanical about its tone. "People of Earth, we are the Empire. We have conquered 37 worlds across this galaxy. Your planet is now claimed as territory of the Empire. You will surrender all weapons and submit to our authority. Resistance is pointless. Our soldiers will arrive shortly to establish order. Do not attempt to fight. You cannot win." The message repeated in what sounded like dozens of different languages. Danny watched as military jets streaked across the sky toward the nearest vessel. Bright flashes of light shot from the alien ship, and the jets simply vanished. There was no explosion, no debris. They were just gone. "We need to get inside," Danny said, pulling Lisa toward the clinic. But before they could move, something new appeared in the sky. Hundreds of smaller objects were falling from the massive ships. They looked like metal eggs, each one about the size of a bus, and they were dropping toward the ground at incredible speed. One of them was heading directly toward the empty field at the edge of town. The pod slammed into the earth with enough force to shake the ground beneath Danny's feet. A cloud of dust and dirt rose into the air. Danny and Lisa stood frozen, watching from behind a parked truck about 200 yards away. The pod's surface began to split apart. Sections of metal folded outward like the petals of a flower, revealing the interior. Danny counted 12 figures emerging from the wreckage. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with gray skin that had a slight blue tint. Their eyes were large and black, and they wore armor that looked like nothing Danny had ever seen. Each one carried a weapon that hummed with strange energy. The lead soldier stepped onto the grass and took a deep breath. Danny assumed it was their commander from the way it stood taller than the others. It raised one arm and seemed about to give an order. Then it stumbled. The alien soldier grabbed at its throat. Its large black eyes went wide with what looked like shock and pain. The weapon fell from its grip as both hands clutched at its chest. A horrible choking sound came from its mouth. The other soldiers rushed forward to help their leader, but one by one, they began to suffer the same fate. Danny watched in disbelief as the mighty alien warriors dropped to their knees. Some tried to crawl back toward the pod. Others simply collapsed where they stood. The sounds they made were awful, a mixture of gasping and screaming that made Danny's stomach turn. "What is happening to them?" Lisa whispered. Danny shook his head. His medical training was screaming at him to help, to do something, but he forced himself to stay hidden. These were invaders who had come to conquer his world, and yet watching them die was one of the most disturbing things he had ever witnessed. In less than 3 minutes, all 12 alien soldiers lay motionless on the ground. The field was silent except for the wind rustling through the grass. Danny's phone began buzzing again. He looked at the screen and saw dozens of messages and alerts flooding in. He opened a news app and felt his jaw drop. The same thing was happening everywhere. Alien soldiers were dying the moment they landed. In New York, in London, in Tokyo, in Cairo. Across every continent, the mighty warriors were falling without a single shot being fired by human defenders. The invasion force that was supposed to conquer Earth was choking to death on arrival. "I need to get closer," Danny said. "Are you insane?" Lisa grabbed his arm. "What if there are more coming?" "Look at them, Lisa. They are dead. Something killed them, and I need to understand what." Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "I am coming with you. I have examined hundreds of different animal species. Maybe I can help figure out what happened." They approached the fallen alien slowly. Danny knelt beside the body of the commander. Up close, he could see foam around the creature's mouth and nose. Its skin had turned a darker shade of blue, almost purple. The large eyes were open and clouded over. "These are classic signs of respiratory failure," Danny said. "It looks like they suffocated, but there is no obstruction. It is like their lungs just stopped working." Lisa examined another body nearby. "Look at this," she said, pointing to patches of what looked like a rash spreading across the alien's exposed skin. "This looks like some kind of allergic reaction, a severe one." Danny looked up at the sky. The massive ship still hung there, silent and unmoving. He wondered if the aliens inside understood what had happened to their soldiers. He wondered if they were preparing to send more. His phone rang. It was Colonel Martinez from the National Guard unit stationed nearby. "Cole, we need every medical professional we can get. We are securing the landing sites, but we need people who can examine these bodies. Can you help?" "I am already at one of the sites," Danny replied. "Colonel, they just died. They stepped out of their pod and dropped dead within minutes. I think something in our air killed them." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "We are getting the same reports from everywhere," the colonel finally said. "Whatever is happening, it is not just luck. Get ready, Cole. I think this war just took a very strange turn." Danny ended the call and looked at Lisa. Around them, the bodies of 12 alien soldiers lay still in the afternoon sun. Somewhere far above, an entire invasion fleet was watching their warriors die. And for the first time since the ships appeared, Danny felt something he had not expected to feel. Hope. 2 days had passed since the invasion began, and not a single alien soldier remained alive on Earth's surface. The death count among the forces had reached 43,000. Every warrior who had stepped out of a drop pod had died within minutes of breathing Earth's air. The mightiest military force in the galaxy had been defeated by something invisible. Danny Cole had not slept in 36 hours. He stood in a makeshift laboratory set up inside the high school gymnasium. The bodies of several alien soldiers lay on examination tables, surrounded by scientists and medical professionals who had been rushed in from across the country. Doctor led the team from the Centers for Disease Control. She was a small woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She had spent her career studying the most dangerous diseases on Earth, and now she was trying to understand why her planet was deadly to visitors from the stars. "The results are consistent across every sample," Doctor announced to the room. "The respiratory system is completely different from ours. They breathe a mixture of gases that would be poisonous to humans, but more importantly, they have no immune system capable of handling biological threats." Lisa Grant looked up from her microscope. "What do you mean? Every living thing has some kind of immune response." "Not like ours," Doctor replied. "From what we can tell, they evolved on a world that was almost completely sterile. Very few microorganisms, very little biological competition. Their bodies never needed to develop defenses against bacteria, viruses, or fungi." Danny thought about what that meant. He had learned in medical school that the human body contained trillions of bacteria. They lived in the gut, on the skin, in the mouth and nose. Most of them were harmless or even helpful. Humans had evolved alongside these tiny organisms for millions of years. "So when they breathed our air," Danny said slowly, "they inhaled millions of microorganisms their bodies had never seen before." Doctor nodded. "Exactly. Common bacteria that live harmlessly in our lungs attacked their tissue like a plague. Fungal spores that we breathe every day without noticing triggered massive allergic reactions. Even the oxygen levels in our atmosphere may have been toxic to them. Earth is basically a biological weapon. Lisa walked over to one of the alien bodies. She pointed to the rash-like patterns on its skin. These marks, I have seen similar reactions in animals exposed to new environments, but this is so extreme. It is like everything on our planet was trying to kill them at once. A young National Guard soldier named Hall stood near the door. He had been assigned to guard the facility, but he had been listening to every word. "So we did not beat them," he said. "The planet did." "The planet and 4 billion years of evolution," Doctor said. "Humans survive on Earth because we grew up here. Our ancestors fought off countless infections and diseases. The ones who survived passed down stronger immune systems to their children. We are the descendants of the winners." Danny looked at the dead alien commander on the nearest table. This creature had probably conquered worlds. It had likely killed thousands of beings who had tried to resist, and it had died choking on organisms too small to see. A commotion outside drew everyone's attention. Opened the door, and Colonel Frank Torres entered. He was a heavy-set man with a commanding presence and worry lines etched deep into his face. "We have a problem," the colonel announced. "They are not giving up. Our satellites detected new drop pods leaving their ships, but these ones are different." He pulled up an image on a tablet computer. The new pods were larger than the first wave, and the soldiers emerging from them were encased in bulky suits that covered every inch of their bodies. Thick helmets with sealed face plates protected their heads. They looked like astronauts preparing for a spacewalk. "They figured it out," Lisa said quietly. "They adapted fast," Colonel Torres agreed. "The first wave was a disaster for them, but they learned from it. These suits are designed to keep our atmosphere out. The soldiers inside are breathing filtered air from tanks on their backs." Danny studied the image. "How long can those tanks last?" "We do not know, hours maybe, but long enough for them to establish a foothold and bring in more supplies." The colonel put down the tablet. "The good news is these suits are slowing them down. They are clumsy, and they have to be careful about any damage that might breach the seal. Our military is already engaging them." Over the next several days, Danny watched the conflict unfold through news reports and military briefings. The sealed soldiers were far more dangerous than the first wave. They could survive on Earth's surface, and their weapons were devastating. Human forces suffered heavy casualties in the initial engagements. But the humans adapted too. Soldiers quickly learned that the alien suits had weak points. The joints were vulnerable to damage. The air tanks could be ruptured with concentrated fire, and once a suit was breached, even a small hole was a death sentence for the inside. Guerrilla tactics proved effective. Small teams would ambush alien patrols, targeting their suits rather than trying to kill them directly. A single bullet through a seal meant the alien inside had minutes to live. Many died trying to patch holes in their armor while invisible killers flooded their lungs. 1 week after the invasion began, Danny received word that Admiral, Supreme Commander of the forces, had ordered an orbital bombardment of Chicago. Millions of humans died in minutes as energy weapons rained down from space. Danny stood outside the gymnasium and watched the distant glow on the horizon. Lisa stood beside him, tears streaming down her face. "They cannot beat us on the ground," she said, her voice breaking. "So they are going to burn us from above." Danny put his arm around her shoulder. "Then we need to find a way to reach them up there." The war had entered a new phase. Earth itself was humanity's greatest weapon, but the enemy had learned to fear it. Now they were fighting from a distance, raining death from the safety of their ships. Humanity needed a new strategy, and Danny was determined to help find one. 3 weeks into the war, the landscape of Kansas had changed forever. Craters marked the places where alien weapons had struck from orbit. Abandoned vehicles lined the highways as people fled from one temporary shelter to another. But the humans had not broken. If anything, the attacks had made them more determined to fight. Danny Cole worked out of a bunker beneath an old farmhouse about 20 miles from what remained of. The town had been destroyed in the second week of bombardments, but the people had scattered into the countryside and continued resisting. Lisa Grant worked alongside him, dividing her time between treating wounded fighters and analyzing captured alien technology. Colonel Frank Torres had established a command post in the same bunker. He coordinated attacks across the entire region, working with resistance cells that had formed in every surviving community. The regular military had taken massive losses, but ordinary people had stepped up to fill the gaps. One afternoon, a local mechanic named Jake arrived at the bunker with an excited look on his face. Jake was a quiet man in his 40s who had spent his whole life fixing tractors and trucks. He had never imagined he would become part of a war against aliens from another world. "I found something," Jake said, dropping a piece of alien armor on the table. "Look at the joints." Danny and Lisa gathered around to examine the material. The armor piece came from a suit that had been damaged in a recent battle. Jake pointed to the connection points, where different sections of the suit linked together. "See this coating on the inside of the joints," Jake said. "I have been working on captured equipment for weeks now, and I noticed something strange. Whenever this stuff gets wet with salt water, it starts to break down." Lisa leaned closer. "Salt water, are you sure?" "I tested it with road salt mixed in water. Same result. Within an hour, the material gets soft and starts to crack." Jake grinned for the first time since Danny had met him. "I think we can use this." Colonel Torres immediately saw the potential. Within days, resistance fighters across the region were armed with improvised weapons designed to spray salt water onto soldiers. Water balloons filled with brine. Modified fire extinguishers loaded with salt solution. Even simple squirt guns became deadly tools. The results were devastating. Patrols found their armor failing in the middle of combat. Joints seized up or fell apart entirely. Seals cracked and let in the deadly Earth atmosphere. The aliens who had learned to fear the air itself now had to fear water as well. But they were not finished adapting. Danny learned from captured communications that a young officer named Captain had taken command of ground operations after several senior commanders died from suit failures. She was more cautious than her predecessors, pulling back from areas where human resistance was strongest and focusing on establishing heavily defended positions. Danny studied everything he could learn about Captain. Unlike Admiral, who seemed to view the invasion as a matter of pride and honor, appeared to be genuinely questioning whether the war could be won. Her communications with the flagship suggested growing frustration with the endless casualties and the hostility of the environment. "She is not stupid," Danny told Lisa one evening. "She knows they are losing soldiers faster than they can replace them. Every day on Earth costs them dearly." "Do you think she might negotiate?" Lisa asked. "I do not know, but she seems different from the others, more willing to admit when something is not working." The answer came sooner than Danny expected. A week later, Colonel Torres received an encrypted transmission through channels that should have been impossible to access. The message was short and direct. "This is Captain of the Imperial Forces. I wish to discuss terms. I am tired of watching my soldiers die on this cursed planet. If you can guarantee safety for those who surrender, I am willing to share information that may help end this war. Respond on this frequency if you are interested." The bunker fell silent as everyone processed what they had just heard. An alien officer was offering to betray her own people. "It is a trap," one of the resistance fighters said immediately. "Maybe," Colonel Torres replied. "But what if it is not? We have been fighting blind against an enemy we barely understand. If she can tell us about their weaknesses, their command structure, their plans, it could change everything. Danny thought about the dead aliens he had examined in those first days. He thought about the millions who had died in Chicago and other cities. He thought about the soldiers on both sides who continued to fall in this brutal conflict. "We should at least talk to her," Danny said. "Find out what she knows, what she wants." Colonel Tors nodded slowly. "I will need to run this up the chain of command. But you might be right, Cole. Sometimes the best way to end a war is to find someone on the other side who wants it to end too." That night, Danny stood outside the bunker and looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the fleet still hung in orbit. Admiral was probably planning his next bombardment, but one of his officers had reached out across the void, looking for a way out of the killing. Danny did not know if Captain could be trusted. He did not know if her information would help or if this was all an elaborate deception. But he knew that humanity could not win this war through fighting alone. They needed to understand their enemy. And maybe, just maybe, they needed to find allies in unexpected places. The war was far from over. But for the first time, Danny could see a path that led somewhere other than mutual destruction. He just hoped they could walk it before Admiral burned the whole world to ash. The meeting took place in an abandoned grain silo at midnight. Danny Cole stood beside Colonel Tors and Lisa Grant as they waited for their unlikely contact to arrive. A squad of soldiers hidden in the surrounding fields provided security, ready to respond if this turned out to be an ambush. A single shuttle descended from the clouds and landed in the empty field nearby. The hatch opened, and Captain emerged alone. She wore a sealed environmental suit like all the other alien soldiers, but she had left her weapons behind. She walked slowly toward the humans with her hands visible at her sides. Up close, Danny could see that was smaller than most he had encountered. Her movements were careful and deliberate, as if she was constantly aware of the danger surrounding her. When she spoke, her voice came through a translator device on her suit, converting her words into English. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she said. "I know you have no reason to trust me." "You are right about that," Colonel Tors replied. "Start talking. Why are you here?" Looked around at the ruined farmland, the craters visible in the moonlight, the devastation that her people had caused. "Because this invasion was a mistake. Because Admiral refuses to accept that we cannot win, and because I do not want to die on this planet, choking on invisible poison while my commander clings to his pride." She explained that the Empire had conquered 37 worlds before Earth. All of them had been relatively easy targets. Some had no intelligent life at all. Others had civilizations that surrendered quickly when faced with superior technology. None of them had been anything like Earth. "We never encountered a before," admitted. "Our scientists knew such places existed, but we avoided them. There was no need to conquer a planet that would kill us just for standing on its surface." "Then why did you come here?" Lisa asked. "Because Admiral believed the reports were exaggerated. He thought your people were primitive and your planet was manageable. He wanted the glory of adding a new world to the Empire." His voice carried a note of bitterness. He was wrong, and now he would rather destroy this planet than admit his failure. Danny felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean, destroy?" Turned to face him directly. "The Admiral has a weapon called the Cleansing Fire. It is designed to eliminate all life on a planet's surface. He has used it before on worlds that resisted too strongly. He is preparing to use it here." Colonel Tors stepped forward. "How long do we have?" "Days, maybe less. He is waiting for authorization from the Imperial Council, but I believe he will act without it if necessary. He cannot return home as the commander who lost to primitives on a. His career and his honor would be finished." The humans exchanged worried glances. They had been fighting hard, winning small victories across the globe, believing that time was on their side. Now they learned that their enemy was preparing to end the game entirely. "What do you want from us?" Danny asked. "I want to survive," said simply. "I want my soldiers to survive. The ones who are still loyal to me would rather surrender than die for pride. In exchange, I will give you everything I know about the flagship, its defenses, and the cleansing fire weapon. I will help you find a way to stop him." The colonel considered this carefully. "How many soldiers are we talking about?" 3,000. All that remain of the ground forces. We are scattered across multiple positions, but I can coordinate a surrender if you guarantee our safety. "Safety on Earth," Lisa spoke up. "You will die if you leave your suits. How can we protect you?" "There are sealed facilities on the flagship that could be modified to house us. Or perhaps your scientists can find a way to help us survive your atmosphere eventually. I do not know what the future holds. I only know that following means death for all of us, my people and yours alike." Over the next several days, information flowed from to human command centers around the world. She provided detailed maps of the flagship's interior. She explained the weaknesses in its defensive systems. And most importantly, she told them exactly where the cleansing fire weapon was located and how it could be stopped. President addressed the world in a secret broadcast to military leaders and resistance commanders. She explained the threat and outlined a desperate plan. A strike team would board the flagship using a captured shuttle. They would fight their way to the weapon and disable it before it could give the order to fire. Danny volunteered immediately. His medical knowledge and combat experience made him valuable, and he had been studying biology for weeks. Lisa insisted on coming as well, bringing concentrated samples of Earth's most aggressive microorganisms as a weapon. "If we can breach their sterile environment," Lisa explained, "we can turn the ship itself into a death trap for them. The same thing that killed their soldiers on Earth will kill them up there." The team assembled at a hidden airfield in Nevada. 20 soldiers, scientists, and specialists who had volunteered for what everyone knew might be a one-way mission. Captain would guide them remotely, feeding them information from her position on the ground. As Danny boarded the shuttle, he looked back at the Earth below, the planet that had fought beside them from the very beginning. That had terrified their enemies and given humanity a chance to survive. Now it was time to take the fight to the stars. The captured shuttle rose through Earth's atmosphere and into the darkness of space. Danny Cole sat with 19 other volunteers, each one carrying weapons and equipment designed to exploit everything they had learned about weaknesses. Lisa Grant checked her sealed containers one more time, verifying that the biological agents inside remained stable. Captain's voice came through their communication devices. "The flagship's patrol pattern has a gap in 12 minutes. That is your window to dock at the maintenance bay on the lower section. From there, follow the route I marked on your maps." Danny looked out the viewport at the massive alien vessel growing larger ahead of them. It was terrifying up close, a mountain of metal and technology that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Somewhere inside that ship, Admiral was preparing to murder an entire world. The shuttle slipped through the patrol gap exactly as had predicted. They docked at the maintenance bay without triggering any alarms. The team moved quickly through the airlock and into the ship's interior. The corridors were wide and clean, designed for beings taller than humans. Emergency lighting cast everything in a pale blue glow. The air inside was filtered and sterile, exactly the environment they needed to survive. "First objective is the Environmental Control Center," Danny reminded the team. "Once we breach that, we contaminate the entire ship." They encountered their first patrol 3 corridors in. 4 soldiers in light armor, not expecting any threat inside their own vessel. The fight was brief and brutal. Human weapons tore through the alien armor, and within seconds, all 4 enemies lay motionless on the floor. But the sound of gunfire had alerted others. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. His voice crackled with urgency. "They know you are aboard. Move faster. The environmental center is 2 levels up. The team fought through increasingly desperate resistance. They were better trained and better armed, but they were also terrified. These humans had invaded their sanctuary, brought their deadly world with them into the sterile corridors of the flagship. Every alien they faced knew that a single scratch could mean a painful death. Danny took a plasma burn to his shoulder but kept moving. 2 of his teammates fell and did not get up, but they reached the environmental control center and blasted through the sealed door. Lisa moved immediately to the main console. "Cover me, I need 2 minutes." The team formed a defensive perimeter while Lisa worked. More soldiers poured into the corridor outside. The fighting became desperate, hand-to-hand in places as ammunition ran low. "Done," Lisa announced. She opened her containers and released the concentrated biological agents into the ship's air circulation system. "The contamination will spread throughout the vessel within 15 minutes. The effect was almost immediate in the sections closest to them. Crew members who had shed their heavy armor in the safety of their ship began coughing and stumbling. Some tried to reach emergency suits. Others simply collapsed as Earth's invisible army invaded their lungs. "Push to the bridge," Danny ordered. "We need to stop before he can launch the weapon." Guided them through shortcuts and maintenance tunnels, avoiding the most heavily defended areas. The ship was falling into chaos around them. Crew members fled in panic as the contamination spread. Some sections had already gone silent, filled with bodies that had succumbed to the microscopic killers in the air. They reached the bridge entrance with only 8 team members still standing. The door was sealed and reinforced, designed to withstand any assault, but had provided them with the access codes. The door slid open, revealing a massive command center. Dozens of control stations surrounded a raised platform where Admiral stood, encased in a personal containment field that protected him from the contaminated air. The Admiral was tall even for his gray skin marked with scars from countless battles. His black eyes fixed on Danny with absolute hatred. "You dare bring your filth onto my ship," snarled. "You think this changes anything? I will burn your world to ash. Every human will die screaming." Danny walked toward the containment field while his team secured the rest of the bridge. Around them, officers slumped over their consoles, killed by the same air Danny breathed without concern. "It is over, Admiral. Your crew is dead or dying. Your soldiers on Earth are surrendering. You have lost." "Lost?" laughed, but there was madness in the sound. "I have not lost. Your planet is an abomination. Nothing should survive in that toxic hell you call home. The fact that you can stand there breathing poison proves that your species is a disease that must be eliminated." Danny reached up and removed his helmet. He took a deep breath of the ship's now contaminated air, feeling nothing but the coolness filling his lungs. Then he looked directly at. "You are right about one thing. Earth is Everything on our planet has been trying to kill everything else for billions of years. We did not survive because we were the strongest or the fastest. We survived because we adapted. We got back up every time something knocked us down. We kept fighting when any reasonable species would have given up." He stepped closer to the containment field. "You came to Earth thinking you would conquer us easily. You found out that our world itself would not allow it. And now you have learned that we will not stay on our world waiting for you to destroy us. We will come for you. We will find you wherever you hide. And we will win because that is what humans do." An alarm chimed. A new ship had entered sensor range, much larger than the flagship. Eyes went wide. "The Elder Council's vessel," he whispered. "They are here." The communication system activated, and a new voice filled the bridge. It was older, calmer, carrying the weight of authority. "This is Elder Council. Admiral, you are relieved of command. Your invasion has cost us over 50,000 soldiers and brought disgrace upon the Empire. You will surrender yourself to face judgment." His containment field flickered and died. Without its protection, he had only moments to live. He looked at Danny one final time. "You may have won today, human, but there are others in the galaxy who will come for you. You cannot protect you forever." Then he fell, choking on the same air that Danny breathed easily. 2 weeks later, Danny stood beside Lisa on a hillside in Kansas, watching the last ships disappear into the sky. Captain had negotiated surrender terms with President. The surviving aliens would leave and never return. Earth was to be marked in all Imperial records as forbidden territory. "Do you think they will keep their word?" Lisa asked. "Will," Danny said. "She lost too many friends on this planet to ever want to come back. As for the others, I think they learned their lesson." Lisa smiled and leaned against his shoulder. "We really did it. We beat them." "Earth beat them," Danny corrected. "We just helped." Somewhere in the archives, a new entry was being recorded about a small blue world in an unremarkable solar system. The entry would be simple and direct, a warning to any who might think of visiting. Earth, Class 12. Native species extremely hostile and adaptive. Atmosphere and biosphere lethal to all known Imperial life forms. Invasion attempted and failed with total loss of forces. Recommendation: absolute avoidance. Do not approach under any circumstances. And across the galaxy, other civilizations would eventually hear the stories. Tales of a world so deadly that simply touching its soil meant death. Of a species so stubborn that they fought back against impossible odds and won. Humanity had announced itself to the universe, and the universe had learned to be afraid.